Hi, welcome back. This is going to be a full-length episode, number 2, and it is going to be all the ways we see the Hermetic principles surfacing around us. So welcome back to Hermetically Speaking. I'm Toria, your host, and basically this is a podcast about Hermetics, Hermetic prophecy, higher power, awakening, and anything that resonates along that line. Just a true wholesome spiritual journey of integrating and downloading future Earth and new Earth, whatever term you want to use, into the current Earth. And so we'll be doing that together and interviews, things like that. I have a mini series of Kundalini Rising in the works, as well as some mini episodes to keep you guys entertained in between the longer ones. So let's get started. All right. So as we see the Hermetic principles surfacing all around us, this is going to be a really helpful podcast because a lot of people don't understand that everything about energy is founded in Hermetic principles. And so I'm hoping to bring that to light. And that's where we're going. There is no irony in the fact that they seem to be appearing in a pragmatic way. And what comes up must go down kind of analogy. The tides, as well as the poles within each sphere of polarity. We've already touched on the basics of the 7 ancient principles of Hermeticism in the first full-length episode. Today, we'll be touching on how they are flourishing throughout the earth in subconscious, and conscious ways. We'll be working our way backwards, which is inadvertent to its cause. You see, one of the underlyings of Hermetic vibration is that what has been down can always go up, and that what is up does not have to go down. It always can, it's just not required like down to up is. Take a fallen angel, for example. They always rise again. The journey down is always magical as well. It's just not a necessity, it seems. It is an end to a means and transformative in its evolutionary ways. It can bring about greater understanding and knowing, allowing the galaxies and universal races to harmonize in a deeper and more conjugal way. Hence, why many of us incarnate on Earth. Yet, where we come from doesn't quite understand what it will be like with the amount of density here. And so it is a sometimes paralyzing adjustment to our equilibrium and what we have otherwise always known, which was the carefree state of energy and lightness. No weight at all. I mentioned briefly in the last episode how the 7th principle of gender, generational, is manifesting in the world around us. We are witnessing that as it tears various parts of the world into further separation, masking its true intention, which is to only hold every being in the knowing of what is within us. This masking is due to years of hidden knowledge kept quiet and disregarded. Hermetics and so many other things that were deemed taboo, like magic. The non-duality of the masculine and the feminine, which so purely makes us into being, and our inability to understand that in a non-discriminatory format. This will be a hard lesson to watch, as well as for many to experience. They, them, the pronouns, are ultimately a higher understanding, even if it is unseen in the immediate conscious of individuals. It should be honored, and rightfully so. Even deeper, it should be sought to be understood. There is much confusion, though, as they, them does not consist of altering any physical state of your being. It's all about shifting your vibration to understand the oneness of duality within and to honor that they both hold equal space within us. Humanity in its current state struggles to understand the depths of the deeds of the spirit due to the energetic conjunctivitis that plagues our mind's eye. Years of consumerism, plagiarism, con artistry, manipulation, and patriarchy advanced us into the unknowing. All of this is subject to the underlying cause and consciousness that I refer to as dis-ease. According to our Earth's history, Earth originally was the Garden of Eden, and we, a prized species, until a meteor hit the planet and brought with it dis-ease consciousness. Dis-ease creates and feeds and mutates in baffling ways. and holds its host hostage in their own unknowing patterns. Dis-ease creates the doubt of self and others. It creates fear conscious. This topic is ultimately going to be saved for another episode at a later date, to be determined. I just felt it important to acknowledge that dis-ease is the underlying consciousness that feeds the frequencies we are all awakening to shed in order to ascend. Now, this down must go up is a good ploy and a negative. The negative being the destruction, patternization, and the forgetting of self. The positive being like a positive ion. All we have to do is go up from here. We have been charged for so long that either we die out from too much charging or we launch into the abyss in positive rage of spiritual change, which is a lot of what we're seeing and feeling. Spiritual change is the peak of economical and societal. The people will lead like gold eventually, and the leaders will then follow. It'll be a paradox that's beautiful and has not been seen yet. Looking forward to that day. For the people to do this, we must awaken to our generational understandings. For you are male and female, built within you, and astronomy, physiology, and all the sciences prove this. Our DNA and genetics prove this. We are made from a male and a female. So who are we to egoically think we ultimately only end up being one half of a creator species to be complete? It's my feelings that it's quite outrageous when you take the time to contemplate it. That's all I'm asking you to do. Now, we abandon ourselves in this concept and the change to come. A change that is flourishing will be to abandon resistance to what's different, because what's different is what is starting to bring those that have courageously ventured into peace and revelry. This seventh principle is taking the world by storm, especially in America. If we are to honor our roots, we must start sorting through the clutter by honoring what truly belongs to us. I have walked the path of which sexual orientation I want to be more than once, and which gender I want to be more than once. Life in general had me question this when I was young. I was trying to think of a different word to use than gender because it's generational. I'm trying to, transmute that into the higher meaning that it stands for. Couldn't do it right off the bat for some reason. So we're going to come back to that and trying to do that later. Anyways, life in general had me question this when I was young. I remember being a tomboy and, it was a very serious question from my higher self that was like, well, do you want to be a boy? And I really sat with it and was like, I have a lot of fun. I'm a tomboy. I do a lot of boyish things. I play street hockey. I do all of these things. But no, I like being a girl. I want to be a girl. And, that was the first experience, the first real higher self interaction that I now see in retrospect has to do with this principle and has to do with what is surfacing in the consciousness of the world at this point in time. The next time was due to sexual assault. I was healing my sexual assault and had a deep hatred towards men and, thought that I wanted to be a lesbian. And when I really sat with it, I realized that was because I was angry and afraid and I felt safer, or I thought that it would be safer with women. I had never actually given it a shot. I actually sat with it within me instead of reacting. And I have a whole laundry list of things that I have reacted to. So this was actually one that I got to sit and really look at myself and determine. There are so many women and men that are assaulted by the opposite sex, and they never heal their trauma. And so they become attracted to the same sex, or, it's natural for someone to be attracted to the opposite sex, just like it's natural to be attracted to the same sex nowadays. The trauma can happen in every direction. I've seen it more common than not in younger women that I have worked with and mentored, that they have been sexually assaulted at a young age. And they went from idolizing those, dreamy, starstruck Hollywood guys. And then all of a sudden their orientation changes, and they know that something doesn't feel right. So all I'm saying is we have the natural ability, but we also have the trauma response. And that is something that I don't believe that we are looking at enough nowadays. There is no wrong way this principle exists. Denying its existence has contributed to the chaos that is being built around us. It is not humanly for the world to say, shit, we fucked up and we need to start over. It's a predicating lie to tell ourselves that we will or would at this point in time. It is through pain and anguish that our torments will come to a head, and we will change this world and allow this principle to be known. If you have faced trauma with the opposite sex or the same sex, it is best to journal, attend therapy, and perform shadow work and prompting questions on how you feel about the opposite sex because of what you've been through. I highly recommend seeking professional help. There are various forms of therapy that are monumental in the psyche and the spiritual movement that will free you from the confines of post-traumatic stress disorder and flashbacks and anxiety and just the overall various symptoms that this type of experience creates in the body. And it is still dis-ease. It creates dis-ease. Dis-ease is a consciousness. It is a frequency that has filtrated the earth and therefore filtrated our beings and earths at the same time. It is ancient, and we can override it, and we can extinguish it. So this is not only for sexual trauma. This is for all trauma. And I also would like to ask that you don't downplay your trauma because someone else has had it worse than you. Trauma is trauma, and we are each built and wired a certain way to handle our own version of trauma. Don't allow anyone to depict what trauma is for you. Just always be aware and wary of victimhood. No more of this, it happened to me. Instead, transmute it with, how is this serving me? How did it happen for me? Now, how is this principle serving me? How is it serving our world currently? And how is it trying to serve us, and what is it trying to show us? For myself, this principle is serving me in a higher understanding that the human world has long since ceased to adapt and has since allowed me to tap further into humanity than ever before. It's serving our world in ancient truths and honesty that no part of us should ever have to be denied. It is trying to surface through thoughts and urges. It is trying to show us that we do not understand, and that is okay to admit. For the more we admit that we are at a loss, the more surrender comes and carries us into enlightenment. Now, next, we have cause and effect surfacing. We think karma. And if you didn't, well, now I've said it, so ride along with me here. The wheel of cause and effect has forever been spinning around us, on us on it, and in us. We've just been going through an archaic phase and centuries of societal development. We have now steepled that and gotten not as far as we will get, yet as far as we have currently allowed ourselves to get without causing further disruption to the macrocosm of the universe. Therefore, this time has come to an end. It does not mean banish our inventions or halt furthering them. It just means it is time for deeper growth. We have everything we need in materialistic things. This cause and effect principle of Hermeticism prevails in all things at all times, except now it is spinning much faster than it has previously, springing all around us relevantly and quickly. We see it in our governments, society as a whole, and our personal relationships. The wheel of karma is shining itself brighter and quicker than ever before. Our own individual karma is occurring quicker as well. If you rob a jewelry store, you may not get caught. You will, however, pay in another way much quicker than the natural state that once was. Cause and effect is linked to all sorts of things. A robbery could be spiritually tied to a family member's death. The birth of a baby could be tied to a sibling's graduation. The loss of a lover could be tied to a sole proprietorship business flourishing. Karma is not exclusive to the subject matter at hand. The only thing that has to match is the vibratory wavelength that these occurrences exist on. It is, however, much easier to understand when it is attached to the similar circumstances. You steal, you get stolen from. You cheat, you later get cheated on. These are the most common ways we see and notice karma returning. Yet, do we actually consider all of the other circumstances that must align for karma to return to us? Think about the robbery scenario. If the robber robs and then 5 years later gets robbed and receives the intuitive hit that that was karmic retribution, a numerous amount of occurrences in that 5 years ran along that karmic line. I bet you'll think about karma in a whole new way. Now, I love getting down and dirty with our souls and energetic knowing. Karmic resolution is also tied to Hermetic vibration, and they are one and the same while also being very different and can go in more than one direction. The karmic can go left by attaching to a family member, while the Hermetic vibration can go right, and you experience the same circumstances twice. Cause and effect shows up in a magnitude of infinite ways that I cannot fully verbalize. Yet, I myself have noticed that if I make a decision or I respond out of ego, it's mere hours that it's back in my face for me to experience in some way. And because it carries the same frequency as what I sent out, I can see the attachment and execution between the two. Our government is displaying it much faster. And you may say tit for tat, but that's karma and vibration. Trump got charges pressed against him, so now Biden is. Years ago, this kind of agenda would have taken longer to play out. Now it plays out in practically the same month. Even what happened in Afghanistan can be considered karmic balance. An adversary in the past would have taken much longer than 30 days to take back over. Please excuse my political examples. I have a twin flame that indulges in the news without writing a single wavelength. And so I catch it from time to time and watch what's on the stage performing. Apply your own examples that come to mind, especially in your own personal life. They are best to assert to this type of knowing. We will continue to see the rise of karma as more of society awakens and clears it. It also has a rebound effect, because the more society indulges in suffering, the quicker they will get tired of it and truly start to seek change. When the pain is so great, they say, that is when pure change begins. It's a saddening thought to think society as a whole hasn't seen or experienced enough pain as it is, which is why the journey falls on us as individuals and our tolerance for it. So get sick of it, guys. Get sick of the suffering. I know that something that I am definitely still working on is not having to be in pain before I change, not having to feel disruption before I change, before I step forward and match that next vibration that's holding its hand out to me. If you have driven your life into hell, prison, addiction, homelessness, etc., hell yeah, good for you. Because you may not even realize that you saw your only way out being through the darkness. This is not an excuse to stay in the darkness. Use the healing resources. Change your people, places, and things, and you'll get out better than alive. Seek help, and you will find the guidance you need. I'll throw in a disclaimer here just to ease adrenaline or anxiety at such a topic. I spent 5 years visiting my twin flame in federal prisons. I lived in hell for 20 plus years. I was a drug addict, and I was homeless, sleeping on the streets, and eventually living in the shelter 2 different times. That pain and the exhaustion from the pain saved my life, among other divine, universal, strategic things. You did not fall from grace for no reason or because you are undeserving. You fell from grace because you have a deeper knowing, and society is not set up to help achieve the true essence of our interbeings on this planet. We had to break through somehow, and rebellion is how. I recently just saw a clip of a fascinating woman on an IG giving a speech about how the school system is ineffective and how we have more intelligent kids being dubbed problem children because they cannot adapt. It was moving, accurate, and truth that we need more of. Studies have proven that people in addiction that try drugs, etc., are extremely intelligent. We're just disregarded. Now, I know people harm themselves in this way too. Please seek psychological, medical help, anything like that. If you have an addictive personality to anything, there are a million amazing 12-step fellowships and rehabilitation centers. I highly recommend walking into any 12-step room and just sitting in the back and listening for quite a while, because it'll save your life. So what these studies have taught me is that it's the ones that rebel and go against the grain that seem to have a deeper knowing of something not being right. So This principle has been low-key flourishing for years through so many of us. And now in the world around us, we see it accelerating and heightening with each passing year. You may say it's because we had a drug epidemic that left so many children homeless and being raised by grandparents. That is a cause and effect movement right there. The shadow dying to be transmuted into the light, showing itself and birthing itself in large spans of numbers, saying, screaming, something is wrong with our society. We pretend to listen. More and more are starting to actually hear the cries and see the anguish. That is because of each of you that have and are awakening. The work you are doing is reaching the consciousness of all that may still be mute and deaf. This happens in waves, so being mute and deaf is harboring a balance that is still integral to the cosmic plan that is occurring. Things are just being sped up. The astrological occurrences are heightened. The Schumann is forthtelling every day. Enough of my jibber jabber on that one. Let's move to number 5, the divine fifth of rhythm. So subtle at times, and they crater and cater to us in whimsical ways. The rhythm rides under the cause and effect of gender. They stack upon one another, now in reverse, and how we are witnessing rhythm is most likely easiest to identify in our own paths of awakening. For me, I have long since noticed a rhythm of heightened awareness. The clouds are majestic colors and more vibrant downloads are rapid. I'm osmosising at a greater rate or open to it at all again. Because I can block myself from learning like that, my friends. I can block myself from a lot of things. So the rhythm coincides down to and through an experience that renders me into self. I respond in ego. I see my ego. I unveil my ego to my friends and safe places. I gain suggestions on how to face this part of my ego because the beautiful thing about being open with the ego is that someone else has already faced this part of their ego and they have advice and ways that worked for them. Think of all the inner workings of a clock, and all those inner workings are different mandalas, and each of those mandalas represents a being. And as each one spins and clicks into place, it connects with a mandala, and they exchange. They exchange vulnerability, truth, and honesty. And they exchange more than words. They exchange vibration that helps rid the negative, shadowic frequencies. And it doesn't rid them, of course. It transmutes them into beautiful light and allows them to be free to take on another job and another journey themselves. They exchange the shedding of what no longer serves them. Then you start to feel happy, joyous, and free. Through this exchange and setting of the self, you come back out and see the clouds start to be more defined again, brighter again. You learn a new skill again, step more into your worth again, activate a new power again. This is the rhythm of the self. And with this sacred dance, you find yourself maybe doing the salsa at one point, the tango the next, a waltz, and so on and so on. Now, the first go-arounds, you had no clue how to dance, let alone do these dances. Yet with each go-around, with each different mandala, you get better and better. Some mandalas dance to similar tunes, while others bring a whole new song you need to remain open to. If it scares you in a good way, step into it. If it challenges you, step into it. If you are uncomfortable, you, my friend, are growing. If you are comfortable, you're not. Comfort is something we all still seek. I myself have started finding comfort in the uncomfortable because that means I am not getting complacent. I love the rhythm of growth and expansion. Now, when I level up, the universe sends me a whole new CD or record to dance on and learn through. The best example I can give is I learned how to live on my own independently and very successfully. I wasn't just successful materialistically. I was successful emotionally, energetically, and spiritually. The prime 3 that truly mattered to me, the Holy Trinity. I had conquered this in myself and had attained siddhi, serenity and pure peace. It was a beautiful luxury that I had to adapt and understand what I was even experiencing. Then, it was time to level up. My twin flame was being released from prison early and would be on home confinement for over 1,000 days. This was good news. Also stressful for both of us. His daughter was living in his home, and was 19 at the time, wanting the home to herself. She had just moved in just short months before, so it's a fair understanding and just wanting to be on her own. Her father did oblige and ended up asking me if he could live with me. Anytime previously when we thought he may be released, I had to tell him I wasn't ready. Now, I knew I was. It was beautiful, divine timing. I set him up a bedroom in my home, all his own, and showed up to pick him up. From there, all new lessons of healing surfaced. I had to adjust to a whole new rhythm. I still adjust with every dance I master. Like the dance where I walk down my stairs and can hear him yawning in his room in the morning with a large stretch. And all of a sudden, I'm taken back to a scene of the man that abused me for 10 years, who, of course, would do the same thing from time to time. Heck, I do the same thing. Yet, in a man's frequency, just in a man's voice, and not being able to physically see Joe, I'm taken back, paused on my staircase, terrified. The first time or two this occurred, I lost my footing and rhythm and would struggle throughout the day. Then I would remember my tools and I used them to regain my balance. I would never again forget that all I had to do was stop, take the time to touch the wall, and state how this is my home in my city. And that was Joe in his bedroom, waking up for a beautiful day, and that I am safe. I had to relearn what was recognizable dance and rhythm, yet the dance was more strategic. How to not be codependent in a relationship. This was the first one I'd been in since healing Stockholm Syndrome and complex PTSD. I had to relearn how to live in a higher vibration and disconnect from old patterns. It's easier to heal codependent behaviors when you've been single and abstinent for 5 years. So, this dance I am still mastering, and quite well at this point, if I do say so myself. There were very hard struggles for well over a year. The breakthroughs have been more so this current year. In 2 years, we have come an insurmountable length of ways, breaking old patterns back to dust, and openly communicating, as well as both continuously working on ourselves independently. It's a beautiful array of dances, yet the steps in the beginning were complicated, and we had to pay close attention. I could watch the dance and the rhythm, like watching someone teach me and their footwork, and I could see it, yet I couldn't do it myself just yet. This is where I watched my patterning play out. The first couple of weeks with Joe home, there were a couple of times he just held me while I cried over flashbacks like the one above. Or I acted out of fear. I saw myself and got to review it. I saw the dance and watched it. Then after a few weeks or so of that, I was able to claim my manifested desire that my past was not going to be projected onto our future, and so it be. The lessons became easier. The dance became easier. I stumbled on some of the bigger steps, like my eating and spending for quite some time. Now, those two I can proudly say I am in the mastering stages of. Nailing the dance with the rhythm and freeing myself into the cosmos. I hit what I used to call cookies. I'll explain that in another episode. Here, I'll call them marker points. Checkpoints with the flashing flag of divine colors that are bonuses and manifestation, saying you're both healing well, and this moment right here is indication of that. Big moments, like built a garage together moment, and Joe's grace of helping me pay off a credit card towards it. More than his half we had originally agreed to. It was faith and trust all circling around us. I see the new dance coming, and it is this. The commitment to the self again on this journey of business and podcasting and anchoring in the new earth. Through the vessel I am. And my job here as a Hermetic Prophet. I will enjoy it, and the dance looks exciting. To boot, I also just received universal confirmation this week When my my partner came home from work, he carried with him a perfectly preserved dragonfly that had passed on back to its ethereal life. It was just sitting pristine on a truck at his work. When Joe had first come home, I was driving truck and had been having a large amount of dragonfly stings and had climbed up on top of the truck and found a beautiful dragonfly. Same situation. It had passed on and it was just sitting there peacefully. I brought it home and used dried flowers and ribbon to create a tree and pinned everything in a shadow box that hangs in our living room. It's a superb piece of art. I didn't know it was incomplete until he brought his own home 2 years later, almost to the exact day. And in all honesty, it could very well have been the exact day, now that I realize it. If that's the case, then I'm even more blessed. Now, they are both pinned beautifully in that shadow box for all to see. On to number 4, and hit the floor. Polarity got low, 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 and high, 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 and then balance, 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 balance. Like the song Shorty got low, low, low. For anyone that got that immediately, kudos to you. I also take note that when something shows up 4 times, it's calling in all 4 elements, which I love. I'm usually a number 3 girl, yet I'll accept and love 4 for all of the elements, knowing what a sacred calling that is. So hopefully that nice rhythmic chant about polarity activates some awareness in your cause and effect, freeing your gender into internal matrimony. I actually used my manifestation cards deck by Spirit Daughter this morning, highly recommend, for my journaling card pull, and normally I pull 3 cards. Yet I had a jumper, so I got 4, and each one was from a different element. So it's only right that it weaves its way through every essence of my week. Polarity surfacing in the collective and society, although I feel this focus is going to be honed in on the awakening collective, so let's do it. Polarity is surfacing in the rhythmic dance. It's feeding the rhythmic dance even. One pole feeds the left foot, the other feeds the right, and they are one and the same, complementing each other and switching sides and becoming each other to where eventually there is no distinguishment between left and right, and all you can see is both in both sides. The pendulums are the best example. Everything in creation has a pendulum, whether it is shadow or light. And riding those pendulums are how we learn not to ride the pendulums eventually and find that breath of constant stillness within and the constant knowing, remembering, and just full-fledged anchor of constant and consistent contact with our higher self and all the higher realms we are tapped into to fulfill our journeys in a wholesome endeavor here on this earthly plane. Plane like an airplane. So that's an interesting visual because Earth flies around in the cosmos, as does all things. That's a new pendulum to ride, to think of everything in the universe as a big sky field. And all the planets and stars are various planes flying around, all having their place and intricate timing. Oh, such beauty and wonder it brings about. Please do with it as you please. That just showed up for all to appease. I see polarity most when I am healing, going from one end to the other, from one extreme to the other. Addiction to recovery, mind you, recovery came with an extreme side as well for a while. Now I have found a harmonious balance of acceptance. Compulsive spending to balance, binging and purging food to restriction and back again. Some pendulums you have to get off of completely to find the balance, it seems. With the infinite wonders of the universe, I am sure we can get creative in how we tame our riding child of the pendulums. Wild child. By tame, I just mean bring peace to and rid the body of dis-ease and all its cunning and baffling mutative stances it can show up in us in. It can manipulate us in. Ugh. So painful, and always doing mental, spiritual, and emotional exercises to stay ahead of it. Learning that polarity and the pendulums exist everywhere and how to balance them is what I've seen. Society that has not awakened has the same problems that communities that are awakening have. One is no better than the other or free yet. One is just anchoring in so the others may receive eventually as well. That has been the biggest lesson for me. Joining a spiritual community and thinking that I would no longer have to deal with gossip, ego, manipulation, lies, etc. Boy, was that egoic thinking of me. I found out quite quickly that it's still rampant everywhere, and I am no exception. My thing is, I get scared, so I try to fix, manage, and control. Doing much better at it, though, thankfully, and thanks to a 901 question 4th step I'm working on, as well as learning that I don't have to stay in toxic situations that cause fear where I react by trying to fix, manage, and control. I actually viewed it as weak to leave a situation and not see it out to the end, like I'd be failing others and giving up on them. That is not at all the case. I learned that the hard way, and I learned that every community is the same as society. We are all wanting better, and we are working how we know how to do that. Some ways work, and some are insanity when you're just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's society. The blessing of collective communities is the awareness is higher, and you can find those like-minded people and learn how to discern and trust your intuition better and better about relationships. Just because everyone is on a healing journey doesn't mean they are all right for your journey. Be exclusive and protect your energy. It's an intoxicating pendulum to find like-minded people like you and want to be in the innovation of change. I am a pillar of change just with myself, and I sought out community to substantiate that for me because I was too afraid of stepping into my own power individually. That's my own deep-seated trauma of how people respond when they are jealous. I have to work through that, and that is one of the ways polarity has shown up for me. And I'd bet quite a bit to say I am not alone in this experience. Enjoy the polarity. Enjoy it most in the journey of the self, though, because that is where you can transform the world within and all around you and for others. Watch how your polarities feed your rhythm. I've gone time and time again through a rhythmic dance where I am in various experiences, and the first and second response in my head are both of a lesser vibration. It's the third response every single time that is of the highest, because it's the genders working together within me to uphold the highest level of laws of cause and effect while adapting to the rhythm of time and space quicker, and while reducing karma as well as teaching me. Not only is my first thought wrong, my second is the other polarity individually by itself. I need the two married together and balanced for that third thought that is also calling for patience and peace, less reaction and more steady choice. Pause. We'll move on to number 3, thrice. My favorite number. Yeah. Number 3 is correspondence. As above, so below, as within, so without. What goes up must come down, and vice versa. Which is an interesting rabbit hole to jump down, considering it states very clearly in the ancient teachings we have that you don't have to go back down unless you choose to, or you are asked to by the universe. There are many souls here that did not want to come to Earth. I might have been one. I feel like I might have been one. I feel like I probably was one. Not gonna lie. Anyways, they knew it was necessary, so they fulfilled their obligation. That's something to delve into and expand on. Our humanly interpretations are not always correct when it comes to translating ancient texts in other languages. Technically, though, if you delve more into this rabbit hole, we're in a Maya, and therefore our higher self is not actually down here. Instead, it is up there transmitting to us, guiding us, and aiding and learning from this journey. Whew. Glad we came full circle on that one. Although ever since I started questioning God, like actually freely asking questions and interrogating, I've gotten more results than I ever thought I previously would have. That's what happens when you have an open relationship with the Godhead, which is how I see correspondence currently, is the unearthing, excuse my pun. Those will definitely happen from time to time, though, so enjoy them if you don't mind to do so. The unearthing is the correspondence between the soul, self, here on Earth, and the Godhead, and all other higher dimensional beings that contribute to our obtaining of the knowledge that enables us to set ourselves free and awaken from the cruelty we have known within and without. The principles of correspondence in higher realms goes without saying. Here, though, there is so much density that cuts through that density with verbal confrontation. Using that word in its highest vibration. So confrontation meaning standing my ground and saying, hey, Godhead, I believe in this, yet I'm unsure how it exists. Can you show me? That's a true story, by the way, and it works every time. My words and my rhythm of rhyme are one with time and the ability to transmute words into a higher frequency when I utilize them. It's part of the channeling vessel I am, and I love this quality about my mission here on Earth. Taking derogatory words that my higher self funnels down to me mid-sentence only to feel the essence and use of that word completely transformed. It's bringing the new earth that I live in here to the earth that we are still working to ascend. Another form of correspondence. God, I love my job. All right. Vibration. Because everything moves, everything vibrates, and nothing rests. Vibration is hard to see with our own two eyes. Yet our third eye can reveal it to you if you just ask it to, and have patience that it will show up for you. I remember the first time it was revealed visually to me, and I saw my bed comforter and the design on it all vibrating and holding itself together, moving at an immeasurable rate. I was stunned, and it was glorifyingly beautiful. The place I consistently see it is a very hot summer day on the black asphalt, and there's the kind of blur that resembles it for me as well, where the heat meets the pavement and the temperature change fluctuates so vividly that you can see the energy vibrating anywhere from right at the surface to even a foot or two higher, depending on the direct sunlight and temperatures. Science has proven that vibration is everything. We are vibration. So the surfacing of this principle has been part of our creation and therefore been a constant. Without it, we would cease to exist and literally fall apart. The illusion would crumble and we would be in the dark. Ritual flame concentration can also help with thinning the veil and enabling your third eye to see into the distant vibration all around us. Our regular eyes are so far from the sorts currently that I use, distanced candidly and symbolically. Vibration also shows up in the way our relationships change and we shed old ones. That is always a key indicator. Or when our bodies start to have trouble with certain foods or ingredients. Our frequency is unable to match that of the foods any longer, so we have adverse effects that can be unpleasant and even confusing. Excuse me. Autoimmune fluxes are indications of vibration shifts within us as well. Autoimmune tends to be one of the number one physical responses to an awakening being. What are some of the ways you see vibration in your universe? Now we move on to number one. Numero uno. Yeah. I'm waving my hands like in a salsa dance kind of thing. Just envision it. It's great. Anyways, the all is mind. The universe is mental. Dun, dun, dun. This is such a package within a package within a package within a package. There's those 4 elements again. Bless me deep wisdom, for I am worthy and in love with you in all you do. Thank you and namaste to you. Quick blessing of gratitude there. Let's simply compare it to our minds in human form. Our minds are the vessel for our mental capabilities and what we create. The narratives, the manifestations, the frequencies we align with, absolutely everything. On the grandest scale of them all, we are literally just a mind inside of a mind inside of a mind, and maybe even inside of one more mind. This is to protect God. The Godhead in all the ways God reveals itself to us. The demiurge, you've heard me mention it in the first episode. The demiurge is the next example for the demiurge is the next example for the demiurge is a mind within the mind of the all. Got my tongue tied there. This is because God understands that humanity was created differently. Because God ultimately created us. Neither here nor there, just relevant, of course. We were created differently. We were created separate from God. In the fact that we have the free will to choose God. From my understanding, we are the first creation successfully created in this endeavor. Do I have all of my memories of the universe at my fingertips to be certain? Yes. But also no. I'd probably explode. Anyways, I don't have full access, so this is what my research from this humanly realm and other fantastic gurus and spiritual artists have received this information in various forms as well. So I'm rolling with it and open to all possibilities at the same time. Rolling on. We have free will. Other creations are born, created, knowing they are a part of Source, knowing they are one, knowing they are pure energy. We are different. To hold a sacred container for us, we are created within a mind within a mind. This was also to help God as well. The way this has been confirmed and shown to me throughout my journey of various labyrinths has been the coming to know God in its different forms. Imagine the Creator, Source, the All, the Divine, all being a different mind or mentalism. You can picture it in numerous ways. It could be a deity with one body and multiple heads and sets of arms, or it could be a deity with one head and different sets of arms, and each one of those arms has its own journey and mission within creation. Basically, each set of those arms is its own being. I think this is my favorite depiction. Consistency with the one being of all things, yet each set of arms has its different aspect of characteristic traits and ways of creating. How did I come to this, you may ask? In each labyrinth I journey through, I meet God differently each time. In the beginning of every labyrinth, I spring new questions for God, and my relationship with God becomes a game of questions and answers, unveiling, honesty, belief, trust, and truthity. Throughout this time period is when I am delving deep into the journey of self, facing my ego at every turn, surrendering to the unknown, surrendering that I know nothing at all, praying for the willingness to open myself up everywhere I may have resistance, in the places I can't even see it. Bit by bit, I feel those old blocks of ruins shift and make way for the light. As I am sorting and shedding, forgiving and loving my shadow and self, I am also going through a process of meeting the Source. It shows me so much about them and what its characteristics are and how it creates. As I finish this labyrinth and it's coming to a close, at the end of it, the Source shows me how it is God. And I know I have come full circle. I have done this numerous times with the Source, then the Creator, the Divine, the All, mythological gods, and so on. Each time, massive healing layers occur, a deeper knowing of the universe occurs, and it all brings me back full circle to God. I did not consciously know what I was getting into at first, and it took the first 2 times for me to realize this was a trend. I can do this at will. Pretty cool. It all started out with a simple question and taking time to ask. I literally stood in my mom's living room one day and looked to God and said, I know mythological gods exist, yet I also know your rule in the 10 Commandments. Please show me how you both exist. Within 2 days' time, I was given the full story of their creation and the understanding that God created them and that they were not meant to be dismissed, tarnished, or disregarded. I'll take a moment here to mention at this time in my awakening, I was healing my relationship with religion while expanding it, accepting it for its light purposes and taking the healthy vibrancy from it and leaving what no longer served me far behind. I was raised Catholic and very much loved God all my life. My relationship with God was not like a Catholic's though, and I found the courage to start questioning that and getting down to the roots of it. From there, the labyrinths opened up, and I stopped unquestionably following any God, and instead I started questioning every God, every aspect of God, that is. Resources I would read and listen to would use the name Source. So I asked God to show me Source and how Source fit in. This took the first full-length labyrinth because Source is God. Then the Creator. Man, the nature. Oh, I have chills right now. The bluebirds, the grass, the trees, breath. Never has anything been so intimate on this planet for me than that labyrinth. The physical intertwined with the physical. Goosebumps. These labyrinths showed me how all of these were in and all around me. In the shadow, needing led to the light. In the light, needing seen in a conscious state. So many ways to describe, and not even words to do them justice. If you ask me how I found these labyrinths and was able to access them so easily, it may shock you to know that there are actual alchemical shadow workbooks and questions that have been outlined and working for decades now. Yet, they are safeguarded by a very strong stigma that keeps the ego working diligently to prevent one from working them fully. It's a strong face of self, and anyone that's truly worked them knows the power in them. Others will understand when I say half measures do not prevail. I call them the 12 steps of spiritual alchemy because that is what they are. My whole chest flutters and lights up with vibrant light when I say that, because the truth that resonates for that the frequency that resonates that truth is undeniable, and it will flourish more and more as we anchor in the new earth. I started with the AA 12 steps, moved to the NA 12 steps, went back to the AA 12 steps, then did 2 more rounds in the NA 12 steps. I then proceeded to do the 12 steps in ACA, and I am now tangentially working the 12 steps in OA and DA/DBA. AA is for Alcoholics Anonymous. NA is for Narcotics Anonymous. ACA is for adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. OA is for Overeaters Anonymous. DA is for Debtors Anonymous, and DBA is for Debtors Business Anonymous. Told you, a lot of reactive behaviors, a lot of stuff that I've had to work through. Anyways, each time I applied them to different things. Now, this is the first 5 rounds of steps because ACA, OA, DA, DBA, they're pretty self-explanatory. The first time I did the 12 steps in AA, I had to save my life in numerous ways. I worked the NA program very diligently. I just couldn't do the steps in the NA because the psychosis was so raw and detrimental, and so was the complex PTSD, that I could not handle the workbook questions of NA and how they ask about sexual trauma and abuse. So my sponsor, who is a godsend and an angel and a divine being in every freaking way, she worked AA too. And so she understood, and she took me through the AA steps so I could get some bearing about myself, get some sanity, some spiritual foundation integrated into this body that was ridden with dis-ease, riddled with it. Oh, God, it feels good to be free. Once I did a successful first round in AA, I had all the courage and internal support to jump into the grueling workbook of NA. I went back to AA for a new way to work the steps, which I call the Keystone Way. It was a quickie with my sponsor that we did in an evening, and it was lovely. I then pulled the NA workbook back out again, and instead of the addiction of drugs and alcohol, which I had successfully released myself from and from the bondage of, I applied the steps to control. I saw that while my twin flame was in prison, I was self-sacrificing to ensure he stayed in my life due to the deep-seated abandonment wound that was formed in me when I was a child. I knew I had to break that, and I had to be okay with anyone leaving my life because that meant they were meant to. I remember surrendering in step 2 of that round, still to this day, releasing him and just the abandonment and the fear of it. It physically hurt. I could feel the healing of a trauma bond reaction where you could feel the muscle in your heart physically break. That's a trauma bond response, by the way. And I could feel that. And I knew that it was transformative. I was surrendering everything about myself and releasing. And I sat there at my mom's dining room table and I bawled my eyes out. And it transformed me into independence and freedom like I've never known. And what was meant for me came back in a higher vibration because we're together in a healthy, happy relationship. And we took our time apart when we needed it. I always say, if you have an attachment to it, surrender it. And if it's meant for you, it will be gifted back to you in some way, shape, or form that matches the new frequency you are holding. The last round of NA steps I applied to fear. This was because the flashbacks and PTSD symptoms had taken over my life. Complex PTSD became my identity for about 2 years, and I could not allow that. I started seeing where it was becoming my identity. And I had to do something about it. I could not allow any form of dis-ease to attach to me and stay. It's like a parasite. I'm not your host. I'm going to transform you into stardust and send you on to a better life. I had to find its purpose and work through it. I had to arrest the fear of it controlling me forever, because that's what the fear was based in, was that PTSD was going to control me forever. The flashbacks were going to control me. I was never going to have any bearing or comfort or safety from it. I did just that. I freed myself. Wasn't just due to the 12 steps, but the 12 steps and the spiritual alchemy of aligned me with a prolonged exposure therapist that the combination together, fucking mind-blowing, y'all. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. I went from a 58 on the diagnosis scale down to a 16. That means that complex PTSD is almost non-detectable in me anymore. For a better understanding, a score of 30 is a civilian diagnosis point of PTSD. This means someone that has never seen combat serving in the military, that if they take the test and they score 30, a minimum of 30, they are diagnosed with PTSD. A score of 43 is the diagnosis point for soldiers that have seen combat. Now, I am a civilian that has never been in the military, and my starting score was a 58, which is debilitating to say the least. If I had taken the test probably about 2 years earlier when I was homeless and psychosis, it probably would have been quite a bit more. Anyways, thank goodness it was only 58. How is this serving me? How is this working for me? Where is God in this? Anyways, 58 is debilitating, to say the very least. The combat and war zone I experienced was over 20 years of various traumas, ranging from a consistent denying of reality, neglect, abandonment, manipulation, financial abuse, and other forms of abuse. And the second decade of sexual abuse, financial abuse, abuse with firearms, and physical abuse, sodomy, and being held against my will to where I developed Stockholm Syndrome to survive the captivity. All that for our next episode, though. What do you say? On the next full-length episode, I will be sharing my awakening and how I ultimately awoke to the knowing of the vessel I am as a Hermetic Prophet and everything that entails. To get back on track, let's focus on the mind, the all. The all is mind, and the universe is mental. Now, having been thoroughly described by my perspective and personal experience, I do believe the demiurge holds our existence and God holds its existence within its mental landscaping. It makes sense that God would want to protect itself from a creation that was granted self-will and coming to believe and understand on their own terms. It also gives a lot of supporting evidence to when Jesus Christ anchored in 4D, sending angels incarnated to do things like that, to bridge the gap, because we have that distance between us. I hope this episode was enjoyable to all and helped open your minds for greater expansion and remembering. I will talk to you in the mini episodes in between, as well as my new series, Kundalini Rising, that I am working on. I'll be interviewing and listening to others' awakening stories and their experience with the Kundalini energy that touches us all so uniquely. I'm opening this avenue up with the intention of enhancing and expanding our emotional capabilities of compassion, understanding, and truth as we get to know one another more. I also look forward to presenting my next full-length episode of Hermetically Speaking. Thanks for bearing with me while I still analyze and figure out what kind of podcaster I am to be. Check me out on socials at Hermetically Speaking, or my website to book a service at hermeticallyspeaking.com. I'd love it if you'd help me anchor in the new earth further by supporting and even sharing my donation-based services. Until next time, remember that you are amazement and all the wonder of the stars. Namaste, and much love to all.